4, 3, 2, 1. The Rules Committee will come to order. I'm looking at my statement here, it says this morning. That's when we thought we were going to meet at 8. So I'm going to say this afternoon. I'm just grateful it's not this evening. But we are meeting to set up debate on much of the remaining work facing this Congress, keeping the government funded and passing additional COVID relief. This could very well be our final Rules Committee meeting of the 116th Congress. And oh my God, I hope the hell it is. I am hopeful that we could conclude things on a positive note. There should be nothing controversial about avoiding another continuing resolution or ending surprise medical bills. And there should be nothing controversial about helping Americans as they deal with the impacts of this pandemic, including the sharpest downturn in our economy since the Great Depression. This is the time of year when we urge one another to remember the less fortunate among us. Well, there are a hell of a lot of people less fortunate today because of COVID-19. They are dealing with the loss of a job, a business, or even a loved one. And that's in addition to the quiet hunger crisis that always persists right below the surface in this country, even in the best of economic times. The House passed the original HEROES Act roughly 7 months ago. It's past time to finally get something through both chambers and on to the president. This is about helping the American people. And I'm thankful that this package, while not perfect, will help us do that. I'm proud to see it include a 50% boost in SNAP benefits for 6 months to help families on the brink, and that it extends SNAP eligibility to college students who are eligible for work study, while providing $400 million to help our food banks. This is a bipartisan compromise, but from my point of view, there are some victories here. And as the president-elect has said, this should be just a down payment on additional future relief. Before I turn to our ranking member, I just want to say a couple of words about the service of 2 of our members here today. First of all, the distinguished chair of the Appropriations Committee, Ms. Lowey. I just want to say you have been an extraordinary chair of the Appropriations Committee. You have fought to make our country better, and you have insisted that we have a government that has a conscience. And it has been a privilege to work with you, and I am incredibly proud to call you my friend. And we're going to miss you, and I look forward to when there's a time we all can meet together and actually toast your incredible service to not only this House of Representatives, but to this country and to the world, by the way, because of all your great work on foreign affairs in the Foreign Operations Committee. And I also want to say a word about the service of the Congresswoman from Miami Beach. We here in the Rules Committee are lucky to have gotten to see the Donna Shalala work up close to learn her thought process and how she puzzles through incredibly complex issues. How important building relationships and establishing trust are to getting stuff done. And basically we learned that whatever the problem is, Donna probably has already tackled it. And that's because when it comes to policy, Donna has done it all. You know, over the years, she has had many titles. She's doctor, treasurer, college president, chancellor, assistant secretary, secretary, congresswoman. I go on and on and on. I'm lucky to be able to call her not just a colleague, but to call her a friend. And I want to thank her for her leadership, not just in Congress, but across government for a very, very long time. So Donna, we are all better for having getting the chance to serve alongside of you. And I know that whatever you do next, it will be something that allows you to continue helping people, because it's just who you are. And so we're going to miss you, and we love you a lot. And Nita, we love you a lot too. This is kind of bittersweet because while I'm happy that we're moving forward on a bill that's going to help the American people, I'm sad that both of you are moving on to other things. So at this point, let me turn to our ranking member, Mr. Cole, for any opening remarks that he would like to make.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me begin by associating myself with your remarks about our distinguished chairman, Ms. Lowey, and about our esteemed colleague, Ms. Shalala. You're exactly right. These are 2 of the very best members that we have. And we are going to miss them both tremendously when they go on to other things. But somehow I think the country will continue to benefit from their service. I have no doubt about it. Today's bills, Mr. Chairman, or today's bill is one that we've been waiting for quite some time. We're here today to consider a package of 12 bipartisan bicameral spending bills that will complete the appropriations process for fiscal year 2021. We're also considering, as part of the same bill, a bipartisan pandemic relief package, as well as other critical items. This will not only complete the appropriations process for fiscal year 2021, but it will also ensure that millions of Americans who've lost their jobs as a result of this pandemic will get the support and help that they need and deserve. It's been a long road getting to this point. Winston Churchill is purported to have said that that Americans will always do the right thing after they've exhausted every other possibility. And Congress sometimes seems to function that way. But I'm pleased that in the end, the hard work on the part of members and staff on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers of Congress has resulted in a bill that will provide real help to Americans during this time of crisis. I know there'll be some who say that this package is not perfect. No bill ever is, but it's a good compromise and absolutely necessary. As an appropriator, I've often said that one of the primary responsibilities of Congress is to fund the government and keep it open so that continue to provide essential services to our constituents that they so rightly deserve. When the House and the Senate complete their consideration of this package, we will have fulfilled that responsibility. At the end of the day, success in the appropriations process requires members on both sides of the aisle and in both chambers of Congress to reach consensus and have the president's support as well. Today, I'm very pleased we have all worked together to finally conclude this process. The bill before us reflects key bipartisan priorities. It includes key provisions supporting our response to the pandemic, like $20 billion of coronavirus vaccines, an increase in funding for the National Institute of Health, and a further $3 billion to rebuild the strategic national stockpile of medical supplies and personal protective equipment. It fully funds our defense needs and ensures a 3% pay raise for all military personnel. It continues to fund needed improvements for border security, particularly on the southern border. And perhaps most importantly, it maintains all pro-life protections, as has been the case in previous years. And the harmful partisan riders that appeared in the Democrats' partisan appropriations bills from earlier this year have been removed. These successes could only have been achieved through a bipartisan process. I would also like to note that unlike the coronavirus relief bill, that's also part of this package, the omnibus appropriations bill came about as part of regular order. These bills were the subject of regular committee meeting hearings in both the House and the Senate, and were subjected to regular floor action in the House and negotiation between the houses. It is a reminder of how effective regular order can be. And I want to commend Chairwoman Lowey and Ranking Member Granger of the Appropriations Committee for their hard work and dedication. We would not have been able to get to this point but for these two exceptionally capable members. I also want to acknowledge that, barring an unexpected calamity, this is Chairwoman Lowey's last meeting before the Rules Committee. We thank you for all your work for the House, for your district, and for our country, and we'll miss you greatly. I'm also pleased that this package before us includes a bipartisan compromise on surprise medical billing. This is an issue I know each member hears about from a lot of constituents. I'm gratified that we've reached a deal that will address this problem, will ensure health consumers have all the information that they are entitled to, and will prevent patients from being billed after the fact for medical services when they had no choice in the doctor that they had to see. Today's bill includes a $900 billion coronavirus pandemic relief package. Once again, this bill represents a bipartisan compromise, and one that, frankly, we should have done months ago. And indeed, this bill could have been done months ago. Most of the elements of this package could have been passed across the floor on a bipartisan basis as far back as July. But instead, it was the Speaker's insistence on her way or the highway that kept us in legislative paralysis for months. Instead of working together to pass what we could agree on, Speaker forced the House to vote on massive partisan bills, one that cost over $3.25 trillion. That included every partisan Democratic policy rider that could be imagined. Of course, it didn't have to be this way. Neither the previous partisan bills nor the relief package in front of us came about through regular order. In no instance did committees produce legislation nor did members have a chance to amend, question, or fully examine the product in question. There's a saying that's attributed to an African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Twice earlier this year, the House tried to go it alone, voting both times on partisan coronavirus relief bills that stood no chance of becoming law, and twice those bills went nowhere. That legislative inaction cost the American people deeply. For months, relief that should have been flowing to Americans harmed by the pandemic was stalled here in Washington for no other reason than because the deal might have benefited President Donald Trump during an election year. That is unfortunate. But now that we are all going forward together, we're taking up this bill, which I believe will be passed by both houses of Congress and signed into law. Today's relief bill includes several provisions specifically designed to help Americans who have suffered as a result of the pandemic. It extends the Paycheck Protection Program and provides additional relief to small businesses. It includes an extension of pandemic unemployment insurance, providing relief to the millions of Americans whose businesses have closed or who have been out of work due to the pandemic. And it includes direct payments that will go to most Americans. As we begin vaccinating Americans against coronavirus, I'm hopeful that the end of the pandemic is in sight. Unfortunately, it's certainly not over yet, and until it is, millions of Americans are likely to continue to need help. But today, finally, that help is on the way, and I think all concerned with that can be proud of their effort. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. He yields back. Let me just say that I appreciate the gentleman's comments, although I have a very different recollection as to why it took so long for us to get here. And I also just want to make clear for the record, saying that we want, saying that you had, that somebody wanted to had a proposal is all fine and good, but it's the details in that proposal that really count. And I'll give you an example. Our friends over in the Senate, led by the Senate Majority Leader, were not interested in helping getting food to people. We're not interested in increasing the SNAP benefits for people during this crisis. I mean, that is in this bill. So, money that goes into a slush fund for the administration to use any way they want is different than making sure that the money gets to the people who need it. But having said all of that, I agree with the gentleman that we have a bipartisan compromise here. And while it's not the bill that I would have written, probably not the bill he would have written, it is a bill that is worth supporting, and the American people need help. And we're going to have to come back and revisit this. And before I yield to our witnesses here today, I also, while we were on the call, our colleague, Mr. Woodall, came online. And again, I also want to once again acknowledge his incredible service to this committee and to this Congress. Mr. Cole and I had an opportunity to say nice things about him on the floor. I don't want to go overboard because people will think I'm changing my party affiliation if I say any more good things about him. But the bottom line is we're going to miss him, and we wish him well, and whatever comes next. And again, we thank him for I thank him for his service, but I also thank him for his friendship over the years. And yes,
your announcement today that we're on the same page about abolishing presidential slush funds is all I needed as a going away present. I feel good about where I'm leaving this institution. I thank you for that.
All right. And I would also just say to everybody, including our witnesses, that we are all that stands in the way of this bill coming to the floor and providing relief to the American people. And that's not meant to discourage anybody from saying what they want to say, but it kind of is. But anyway, I also want to I want to acknowledge again Ms. Lowey and Ms. Granger. Again, Mr. Cole said it. Ms. Lowey, you've been incredible, and Ms. Granger, it is always a privilege to work with you, and we appreciate your willingness always to try to come to consensus and a bipartisan resolution. And so it's a privilege to have both you here. I will now yield to the Chairwoman of the Appropriations Committee, Ms. Lowey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And before I begin my remarks, I just want to say how much I appreciated our friendship. We've known each other for long, many years, and I have such enormous respect for you. And I do hope that you and your family, and especially your daughter, see good health. And I want to say, not just to you, but to all my wonderful colleagues, because I will respect your wish not to say good things about every single person here or we'll never get through. But I promise I'm going to come back in the spring and we will toast the friendships and all the good work that we've done together. So I want to thank you and Chairman Cole and all the members of this committee. It's been an honor to appear before you. And Donna, whatever you're going to do, we'll both come back and have a little party and greet our colleagues since we can't celebrate, frankly, today or tomorrow. I'm ready to get rid of COVID so we can reestablish our friendships and get a chance to really talk and gossip. Now, before I begin, I also want to acknowledge what an honor it's been for me to work with my good friend, Kay Granger. She has been not only a thoughtful, intelligent member of this committee, but in her role as ranking member of the committee, we, first of all, we get along very well. We have many views that are similar, a couple that are not so similar, but I think just one or two. But we managed to have established a very productive relationship. I have enormous respect for you, and I look forward to coming back and having a chance to be with you and Tom and all my other friends on both sides of the aisle. But I won't continue with that, my friend Chair McGovern, or we'll never get through. So thank you for the opportunity to address you for a final time as Chairwoman of the House Appropriations Committee. The legislation before you comprises all 12 fiscal year 2021 appropriation bills, a number of items agreed to on a bipartisan basis between authorizing committees and a coronavirus relief package. The 12 appropriation bills include a strong increase in non-defense discretionary funding, allowing Congress to make important investments for the people. I'm particularly proud that we have been able to fund better education for our students with increases for Title I schools and special education, more affordable housing, including new targeted vouchers to reduce homelessness, food security initiatives with full funding for SNAP, WIC, and child nutrition programs, safer communities with funding to address America's gun violence epidemic, clean air and water with a strong increase for the EPA to hold polluters accountable, action on the climate crisis with resources for clean, affordable, and secure energy, and care for our veterans with a special emphasis on suicide prevention and gender-specific care. As chairwoman of the State and Foreign Operations Subcommittee, I'm also proud that the legislation bolsters international security and stability. In particular, the Middle East Partnership for Peace Fund will support people-to-people exchanges and economic partnerships between Israelis and Palestinians. Turning to the coronavirus relief portion of the legislation, the bill provides $892 billion. While it doesn't include state and local relief that is desperately needed, the amounts it provides for education, public health, transportation will greatly benefit our local communities. And the $4 billion for Gavi will help children across the world receive the coronavirus vaccine, though far greater investments are needed to support international COVID-19 response. Before I close, again, I would like to thank all of you, especially my good friend, Chairman McGovern, and my dear friend and fellow appropriator, Tom Cole. We've known each other, all of us, for a very long time, and your partnership has been very, very important for me. I believe that we can all be proud of the work we have done together, and this legislation is a capstone to that effort. I request an appropriate rule for floor consideration of this critical measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You're the best. I am now delighted to yield to the distinguished gentlelady from Texas, Ms. Granger.
Did I do that right? I think did I do it right? Okay, good. Chairman McGovern, Ranking Member Cole, and members of the committee, I want to thank you for allowing me to testify on the final appropriations bills for fiscal year 2021 and the coronavirus relief package. I wish we had been able to pass all these bills at the beginning of the fiscal year, but I'm glad to be finally here today. I have to take a moment to thank my dear friend and our full committee chair, Anita Lowey. These will be the last bills she'll take to the floor. I want to thank her for her friendship and very sincere friendship, and for always being respectful of other opinions and working in good faith. Mrs. Lowey and I fight hard to get support for programs we both believe are priorities, and we also fight hard over issues where we disagree, but we were never disagreeable, were we? We both know that neither side can win on every issue when agreements like this are reached. I also want to thank our subcommittee ranking members for their hard work and leadership this year. There's a lot in this package that is worthy of our support. The package of bills before us today are fully funded and fully fund the government for the fiscal year, ensuring our military men and women in particular have the resources they need. It will also prevent a year-long continuing resolution or a government shutdown, both of which would have had negative effects on our government and national defense. The coronavirus bill will provide desperately needed relief to small business and the airline industry, and it will ensure vaccines are distributed across the country. I look forward to voting on this package on the House floor, sending it to the Senate, and getting it back to the President's desk. And I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank you very much for your statement. I appreciate it. I don't have any questions. I'm happy to yield to the gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too don't want to delay this, so I have no questions. Again, I just want to thank the chairwoman and the ranking member for the tremendous job that they've done. And once more, for the record, remind they got their work done in regular order, closer than anybody else. They moved their bills through the committee process. 10 of those bills went across the floor. The only 2 that didn't, one was being held back, ledge branch, in order to try and get us a raise by our distinguished majority leader. And the other one was Homeland, which has vexed both parties in terms of getting a majority, but it was handled appropriately. And we had really good negotiations with our counterparts in the United States Senate at the subcommittee level. I know my friend, the chairwoman and the ranking member, did the same thing in the famous 4 corners exercise that brought us here. That's the way Congress ought to work. And I'm very proud that these 2 members, under very difficult circumstances, worked their portion of this process through the regular order. I think we have a superior product because they did. With that, Mr. Chair, I yield back.
And I agree with the gentleman. I'm happy to yield now to the distinguished gentlewoman from California, Ms. Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are absolutely in a time of devastating tragedy like never seen before. Every day, the counties in my district are hitting record after record numbers of COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. Instead of celebrating this holiday season, families are grieving or struggling to provide the basic needs for their kids. ICU capacity in Southern California is now at 0%, which means we don't have the beds or the staff to care for the growing COVID-19 patients or to help people suffering from a car accident and other medical emergencies. The consequences of this pandemic are everywhere. Parents are out of work and children are going hungry over the holidays. When I look out my window in my home city of Pomona, I can see the food pantry line that stretches for miles. This COVID-19 relief package is a lifeline for those families. The bill includes another round of stimulus checks, supplemental unemployment insurance, and funding for vaccine distribution. but we cannot be naive in believing that this is enough to survive months and months of unemployment, because it is not. Workers have been out of work for months, no fault of their own. They are months behind on their rent or mortgage payments and on the brink of bankruptcy and at our mercy. Let's not conduct ourselves like the Grinch that stole their humanity and focus on the bipartisan reality that this package, although not sufficient, something is better than nothing that has been offered time and time again by Republicans, especially the Republicans in the Senate. Hunger is impacting children in Republican and Democratic households. So tonight, I urge my colleagues to not fight for the perfect. I want to also thank my chairwoman for all of the work that they have done. Number one, I'm so incredibly grateful for providing additional funding for the COPS program, for providing money, $189 million to address sexual assault kit and other DNA evidence backlogs, $513.5 million for Violence Against Women Act, and $85 million for grants to improve the NICS firearms background checks. I also, I am pleased to hear that we will finally provide a 3% increase, pay increase to our military personnel who are more than well deserving of this money. Thank you again for including the $5 million grant for the Basic Needs Program, a pilot program that I have been working on with now Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris. And there is money in there to continue to provide for our interns. The young people in my community would never be able to afford to come to DC for an internship if not for this money. So as the pandemic takes our country into a very dark winter and our economy continues to struggle in its wake, funding critical government programs is more crucial than ever. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I urge my colleagues to support this rule and this package, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. I'm now happy to yield to Mr. Woodall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I will end my time on the Rules Committee as I have conducted most of my time on the Rules Committee and yield back with no questions.
Did I tell you how much we'll miss you? Mr. Perlmutter.
Okay, I was stunned by that comment from Mr. Woodall. So, and I want to thank him. I want to thank Ms. Shalala for being great colleagues on this committee. To Chairwoman Lowey and Ranking Member Granger, thank you both for your hard work through a really tough year. You know, you've had to, it's been a hurry up, slow down kind of time, and just you two were persistent, you stuck together, you got it done. So just a couple points I'd like to raise. I'm not sure where to find the language on the Federal Reserve. Somebody could point that out to me, I would appreciate it. Number one. Number two, I think we still have some work to do, and this applies to the COVID package. The deductibility of the expenses that small businesses have incurred. Many of them would like to deduct expenses that are covered by the PPP, in effect, grant or loan. And I don't know that we've gotten that quite worked out. The last thing, and this won't surprise any of you, safe banking, the marijuana and banking bill, is sitting in the Senate in 4 different versions, standalone, and then in the various different COVID packages. It didn't make it into this last one. And I just want to advise the Rules Committee that if there is anything that I can attach that bill to in the next session, or between now and the end of this session, I will do that. So I just want you all to be prepared for that. So thank you all very much. Happy holidays to everybody. Thanks for the hard work on this bill.
I thank the gentleman. I'm happy to yield to Mr. Burgess.
Thank you, Mr. McGovern. My thanks to the chairwoman of the committee and to the ranking member, my friend Kay Granger. Look, this has not been an easy process for the Republicans serving on the Health Subcommittee on Energy and Commerce. We did, I think, get 81 provisions included, so that may be some sort of a record for a subcommittee, and that's a good thing. I know one of the hardest fought areas was on the area of out of network billing, and I know it's concerned a number of people. I just want to say for the record, a week ago, I did not sign on to a doctor's caucus letter that supported the language of surprise billing being included in the end of year omnibus, because I felt at the time it could improve. Now, the good news is, I was working with Ranking Member Brady on the Ways and Means Committee, and various conversations with Texas Medical Association, we were able to get the exclusion of considering public payers in the independent dispute resolution. I realize that all sounds fairly technical, but it is important when taking a case to arbitration in an independent dispute before an independent dispute resolution board. If the federal payers or if the public payment plans, Medicare and Medicaid, are included, obviously that will reduce significantly what the overall payment rate where it might end up. And I just felt that was very important to spell out that there was exclusion of the public programs from the factors that could be considered by the arbiter at the level of an independent dispute resolution. I will tell you, I've still not completely decided on where to be on this, because I have yet to hear from a doctor group who say that they they endorse what the work of the various committees have been over the last 2 years. But I do want to say that it is significantly better today than what it was even a week ago, and no question, it's way better than it was in December of last year. And the other thing that has concerned me as we've gone through this process, and it has been difficult to get, and this predominantly refers is going to be in the extender process and the public health process. Look, there's some big cuts coming to medical providers January 1st in what are called the evaluation of management codes, the infamous E&M codes, probably about an 8 to 12% across the board cut to some of our specialty physicians. And this is because of budget neutrality requirements that are in the bills in the public health space. I thought it would be worthwhile to suspend budget neutrality during the pendency of the pandemic, or at least for 1 calendar year's time, until we could sort of figure out where things were. We all label our frontline medical personnel as our heroes this year. They are going to be the first in line to receive vaccines. They have kept it together through very, very difficult circumstances. And it just seems worse than ironic to say at the end of this very difficult year for our frontline healthcare heroes, here's a nice pay cut for you. It just doesn't make good sense. Now, I am grateful to see in the final language there has been some blunting of the effect of that payment reduction, continuation of the sequester suspension for several months into the next year, some across the board increases. Those are all good and those are all important. But again, I do feel obligated to point out in a year that has been so hard on our frontline medical personnel that we would be looking at a bill at the end of the year that would actually deliver some cuts in their reimbursement. Let's not forget that in March and April, we asked our hospitals and our doctors both to suspend elective procedures, which killed the cash flow of those businesses. And the results over the next several months have been that it's been virtually impossible to make up the loss of cash that occurred with suspension of elective procedures. provider relief fund that was provided in the CARES bill that passed on March 27th was significant, and no question about it. It has been, at least in my experience, more helpful to hospitals than it has been to medium and small size medical practices. But I did feel obligated to point that out. There are obviously a number of good things that are included in the bill. We're all grateful that the problems related to reimbursement for home oxygen therapy that dated back to the 2005 Deficit Reduction Act, we may have eventually worked our way out of that, so that's good news. We're all grateful that our gas cans will once again work well again, thanks to some policies that were included from the Energy and Commerce Committee. But look, this is a tough way to legislate, to save everything to the very end and then pass a very large bill. I can't even tell you that I know for sure the page number to direct people to for the fact that Medicare and Medicaid rates are not going to be included in the so-called out-of-network medical billing. I've actually been back and forth with staff. There are a couple of versions of that, but it just makes it very, very difficult. And we don't even have a hard copy of the bill in front of us in the Rules Committee, which is, I find a little bit unusual that we have an online version, but we don't have a printed out version of the legislation. But with all of those caveats, I want to thank everyone who's been involved in this. I know it's been an arduous process, and I know the country is awaiting the coronavirus relief that is embedded in this bill, and I think that's a good thing, and it should pass. But I wanted to voice those reservations. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the indulgence. I don't have a specific question unless someone wants to comment on those issues, but otherwise I'll yield back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we, well, you know, it is posted on, the bill is posted online. This is a virtual meeting. I think if we provide everybody a paper copy, we'd have to destroy an entire forest. But in any event, we will.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, even just a single copy somewhere in the rules suite up here would be helpful. Again, I'm getting discrepancies of page numbers between what I'm getting in the online version and what's been reported. I would like to be able to direct people that are watching what page to go to, but in truthfulness, I can't do that.
I think you can print it out if you want to, but we'll see what we can get you one. Let me now turn to Mr. Raskin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me too just quickly offer my praise to our departing colleagues, Mr. Woodall. I suppose the highest praise I can give him is that there is nobody that I would less want to face on the House floor in debate than Mr. Woodall, because he does such a sensational job of making totally unreasonable things sound completely reasonable and often compelling. And I know my colleagues across the aisle are going to miss his remarkable persuasive powers, and we will miss him too for his fundamental decency and his gentleness. So, Mr. Woodall, it's been great getting to work with you, and Godspeed to you. Donna Shalala, what an extraordinary honor it has been to be your colleague, and what an extraordinary pleasure to be your friend. Your knowledge of government is a national treasure now, and you've seen it from all sides. You've seen it from the public sector side, the private sector side, executive branch, legislative branch, and we know that you haven't even yet begun to fight. And so we look forward to working with you in the days ahead. And thank you. And Madam Chair Lowey, let me just say that you've done such an outstanding job representing not just the people of New York, but the people of America, and all of our constituents have benefited from your passionate hard work and your commitment to the common good. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll just say, you know, Cicero said that the safety and the health of the people is the highest law. We have no more sacred covenant than to deliver to the American people in a time of crisis and a pandemic that has been allowed to rage out of control and ravage the communities of our nation. And so this package is way too late from my perspective. It's too little in some places. The process has been too messy, undoubtedly, but this package is way too badly needed for us to do anything but to pass it overwhelmingly, and I hope unanimously. Our people are hungry, our people are hurting. We have millions of people who've been thrown out of work. We have millions of families that are teetering on the edge of despair and disaster. The food lines in my district, in Montgomery County, Maryland, in Frederick County, in Carroll County, have been harrowing to see during the holiday period. Our people are hurting through no fault of their own. The people thrown out of the work have been not the victims of anything they've done, but the victims of this disease and our federal government's dangerous irresponsibility and negligence in dealing with it. Let's hope that we can put the nightmares behind us now, and we can pass this overwhelmingly to get food aid to people, to get aid to people who are facing eviction, to get aid to the unemployed, to get not stimulus checks out there. These are not stimulus checks. These are survival checks. Let's get the survival and sustenance checks out to our people, to our small businesses who are struggling to survive. Let's do that, and let's move forward in a completely new spirit to defeat this disease, to vaccinate and immunize our population, and to do what government is here to do, which is to serve the people in the public interest. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lesko.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members. I too want to add my well wishes to all those that are leaving and moving on to better things. And I want to thank all of the people, including Kay Granger and Ms. Lowey, for the hard work that they have done on this package. I do have some questions for Mrs. Granger. Representative Granger, are there any poison pills in this that, for instance, we saw in the HEROES Act, so poison pills to me, which would be giving stimulus checks to people that are undocumented, releasing federal prisoners that are 50 years old or older, or doing anything with elections, like prohibiting voter ID or legalizing ballot harvesting. Are you aware of any of those?
I'm sorry, thank you. Some of those that you mentioned were in the package that came to us. The package is the final package. Those have been taken out.
Thank you. I do have a couple questions, a couple more questions. Do you know, in the Save Our Stages Act, who qualifies for that part of the coronavirus bill? Is it just stages? Is it other entertainment venues?
That's an authorizing issue, and so it would not come into this committee in this document.
And for the staff that's listening, if they could get me that information, that would be helpful. Also, for the direct payments of $600, I believe, I want to confirm it's $600 for adults and $600 for each child. Is that accurate?
That's what we believe, but that again would be part of the authorizing committee, not the appropriations committee.
And so for staff, if you could let me know about that, that would be helpful. And those are the questions that I have for you. And so thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you. I do want to, recognize our departing members and of course, Chairwoman Lowey, with all the time we spend with folks in rules and the duration of the 116th Congress. probably spent more time with this crowd than anyone. I really don't have any questions at this point. The hours that we spent yesterday and the summaries we're seeing do show that there's some really critical relief that our communities desperately need. Obviously, it's not enough. I find the $600 payment Scrooge-like, to use seasonal terms, probably less than most senators' suits cost. But the package is maybe too little, but it's desperately needed, and we'll continue fighting. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Morelli. You got to unmute. Yeah.
My apologies. I want to join with my colleagues in acknowledging some folks here today. When I came to Washington just 2 years ago, I was hoping to work with the nation's best and brightest, and we have three of the very best and three of the very brightest who are here today for their last meetings. Just to start with, from a hometown perspective, a New Yorker who has become legendary for her extraordinary work on behalf of our state and our nation. And it's Nita Lowey is someone I've always admired from afar, but the last several years, the opportunity to work with her has been extraordinary. She has been amazing, not only in terms of her professionalism, but her support and her friendship has meant a great deal. And I'm looking forward to many years of relying on her. I'll probably be calling you Madam Chair when you least expect it, but grateful for the opportunity to be with you, and thank you for your service to our state and to our country. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Woodall, who I had the privilege of, I believe my very first managing a rule on the floor was with Mr. Woodall. And I agree with what everyone has said about his passion, about his sense of humor, about his intelligence. He was incredibly kind to me, helped me get through it somehow. I'm sure he wasn't for the rule, but he made it possible for a rookie to get through it and not completely fall apart. But it's been a great privilege to work with him. I know he's passionate about our country, and I know that we're going to continue to hear and see great things from Rob Woodall. So I wanted to acknowledge him as well. And my seatmate, Madam Secretary, who it's been a joy. I have to admit, when I first came here, I was in awe of Donna Shalala. I remain in awe of Donna Shalala and all that she has done. But she's gone from being someone I watched on television on Meet the Press and other programs as a national figure to being a very, very dear friend. And I'm not going to miss you, because I'm going to continue to spend time with you and rely on your extraordinary knowledge. But it has been a blessing, a real blessing, to spend the last 2 years with you. As for the package in front of us, I do want to acknowledge surprise billing, which Donna Shalala and I worked together on with many others. And I think what's in this bill is truly a compromise that makes a great deal of sense. That is going to protect consumers first and foremost, but it's also going to allow what I think is the most appropriate thing, and that is insurers and providers to come together and negotiate their differences. Failing that, an independent dispute resolution, which makes great sense to me. And I would lack the eloquence of my colleagues, but we have much work to do. But millions of Americans literally are suffering and fighting for their lives. And while this package, in my view, is not everything, and there is much more work to do, it is an important step that we need to take. And with that, not only to support the rule, but the underlying bills, and I yield back my time.
Thank you very much. I'm now very happy to yield to the distinguished gentleman from Florida, Ms. Shalala.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your kind words. And thank you, Mr. Cole. Let me acknowledge two extraordinary women who came together and were just masterful in putting together appropriations packages. I'm not sure we'll see the likes of the two of them working together again in any other legislative session. They've just been extraordinary. I've known Nita for a long time. She sat on my own appropriations committee, along with a number of leaders of this Congress, and they are just they're models for how we ought to be working. And Mr. Woodall, I sometimes don't understand what you're saying, but it sounds so great. And I've admired your intelligence and your persistence, and it's been a joy to be your colleague. And let me say about the Rules Committee, I have loved being on Rules. I have learned more in my 2 years on Rules than I have in all of my graduate school and other educations. I thought I knew a lot, but not until I came to Rules. And it's been an education for me and all of my colleagues. I've just loved working with all of you. And I particularly want to thank Jim McGovern for his many kindnesses. It's been a joy. When I say that I've had the time of my life in Congress, people look at me but it's true. And I've loved every moment of it. And thank you all very much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you very much. And I agree with you. Sometimes Mr. Woodall is hard to understand. It's that accent. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wish everybody could speak like me. But in any event, I want to now yield to the gentleman from California, Ms. Matsui.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I'm last, and I still want to say a few words because I think it's important. As we come to the end of the session like this, it's somewhat, you're happy for the conclusion, but it's also bittersweet as you're saying goodbye to a lot of your colleagues and friends, which is something that all of us feel this tug. And I must say, first of all, Madam Chair Lowey and Ranking Member Granger, you have been such fine examples of how we want Congress to work, and you have produced such good product. And it's absolutely wonderful to work with you. And let me just say this too also, the people who are leaving, Mr. Woodall, I did not get to know you that well, but I saw your oratory and your good humor, and I was very impressed because that's part of, in a sense, making sure that we can get along and move along, even though we might have differences of opinion. And let me just say this about my good friend, Donna Shalala, who I've known since, I guess, the Clinton administration. And she has had so many hats, but she never at all took herself that seriously. She was always Donna Shalala, always a great friend, always willing to help. And I can see that she's going to be going on to other things. We cannot waste her talent at all. And Nina Lowey, honestly, I've known you for a long time too. And you've always been very helpful to all of us. And you've always had a North Star of understanding how important public service is and how we all together can really, truly make progress and see justice and good works in this world. So thank you, Anita. And we're really going to miss you very, very much. As for this package, let me just say the support in this bill is really needed, and it's needed now. And we're entering a difficult winter, and states like my state of California grapple with additional stay-at-home orders. So the swift passage of this package will help ensure that we prioritize our collective health without sacrificing our economic stability. The bill provides relief for our small businesses with more than $284 billion for first and second forgivable PPP loans, including for destination marketing organizations, like we have in my district in Sacramento. Visit California and visit Sacramento. And it also helps ensure food security. I've been working at food banks myself and handing out food, and it is just unbelievable the number of people you see there who many times have never ever been there before. So that is so important that we ensure food security through increased SNAP benefits, reinforces unemployment insurance, and provides direct payments to American families. And to stop the spread of the virus, it provides $20 billion for vaccine procurement and nearly $9 billion to the Centers for Disease Control for vaccine distribution. This agreement also includes my Telemental Health Expansion Act, which expands Medicare beneficiaries' access to mental health treatment by increasing the availability of behavioral telehealth services, and includes my Modern Labeling Act that ensures that providers, patients, and their caregivers have the most up-to-date information about the prescription drugs they use. You know, I have heard countless stories from friends and neighbors in Sacramento about how federal support has helped them keep the lights on, buy groceries, and stay in their homes. This bill is another commitment to expanding these vital lifelines. I believe this bill is critical for the American people. I support this bill and look forward to voting for it on the House floor. And with that, I yield the balance of my time. Thank you.
Gentlelady yields back her time. Thank you very much. Does any other member of the committee wish to ask a question?
Mr. Chair, can I correct a statement I made? I understand that there is deductibility for the PPP expenses in the bill, and I was advised of that, and I want to correct the record.
Thank you very much. Anybody else seeking recognition? Seeing none, I would like to thank our witnesses for the testimony. You are all excused. Thank you so much. And without objection, I would like to submit for the record a statement from Representative Sheila Jackson-Lee. Are there any other members who wish to testify on the Senate amendment to HR 133, the Consolidated Appropriations Act? Seeing none, this closes the hearing portion of the, and at this point, I would entertain a motion from the distinguished gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Shalala.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move the committee grant a rule providing for the consideration of the Senate amendment to HR 133, the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. The rule makes in order a motion offered by the chair of the Committee on Appropriations or her designee that the House concur in the Senate amendment with an amendment consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 116-68. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the motion. The rule provides that the Senate amendment and the motion shall be considered as read. The rule provides 1 hour of debate on the motion, equally divided and controlled by the chair and the ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations. The rule provides that the question of adoption of the motion shall be divided for a separate vote on the matter proposed to be inserted as divisions B, C, E, and F. And the chair shall first put the question on such portion of the divided question. The rule provides that if either portion of the divided question fails of adoption, then the motion shall immediately be considered to have failed of adoption. Section 2 provides that upon adoption of the rule, the House shall be considered to have concurred in the Senate amendment to H.R. 1520, with the amendment consisting of the text of the Rules Committee Print 116-69. The rule provides that the clerk shall be authorized to make necessary technical and conforming changes in the engrossment of the House amendments specified in the first two sections. The rule provides that if a veto message is laid before the House on H.R. 6395, then after the message is read, further consideration of the veto message and the bill shall be postponed until the legislative day of Monday, December 28, 2020. And on that legislative day, the House shall proceed to reconsider and dispose of such question without intervening motion. Finally, the rule provides that the chair of the Committee on Appropriations and the chair of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence may insert in the congressional record not later than December 28, 2020, such material as they may deem explanatory of the Senate amendment and the motion specified in Section 1. I yield back.
Thank you very much. You've heard the motion from the gentlewoman from Florida. Is there any amendment or discussion? Mr. Cole.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. While we certainly have some concerns with the rule and don't intend to support it, we're going to try and work with you to expedite matters. So we don't have any proposed amendments to the rule.
Thank you very much. You're the best ranking member that anybody could ever ask for. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing that. At this point, any other comments or anything? Nothing? Okay. So at this point, the vote will be on the motion from the gentlewoman from Florida. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No,
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, on
Yes,
that, we would ask for the yeas and nays.
roll call has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Hastings, Mrs. Torres,
Aye.
Mrs. Torres, aye. Mr. Perlmutter,
Aye.
Mr. Perlmutter, aye. Mr. Raskin,
Aye.
Mr. Raskin, aye. Ms. Scanlon,
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Morelli,
Aye.
Mr. Morelli, aye. Ms. Shalala,
Aye.
Ms. Shalala, aye. Ms. Matsui,
Aye.
Ms. Matsui, aye. Mr. Cole,
No,
Mr. Cole, no. Mr. Woodall,
No.
Mr. Woodall, no. Mr. Burgess,
No.
Mr. Burgess, no. Mrs. Lesko,
No.
Mrs. Lesko, no. Mr. Chairman,
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, aye.
Clerk, report the total.
8 yeas, 4 nays.
And the amendment is agreed to. And Ms. Shalala will, and the motion is agreed to. And Ms. Shalala will carry it for the Democrats.
Mr. Chairman, I will handle it for the Republicans.
Mr. Cole will handle it for the Republicans. So I would urge both Ms. Shalala and Mr. Cole to head to the floor because this is going to be brought up very shortly. And about 15 minutes. You get 15 minutes. You can walk slowly to the floor. So, and let me just say to everybody here, I wish you the happiest of holidays. I mean, thank you for all the cooperation and friendship during this last year. We're bringing a bipartisan compromise to the floor that I think admittedly none of us are totally overwhelmed with enthusiasm about, but nonetheless it is necessary. It's going to help a lot of people, and we will have to build on this in the next Congress. But I appreciate everybody's cooperation here today. And again, be safe over the holidays, and we will see you soon. And without objection, the committee is adjourned.